at the UN summit this week to vote to award additional powers to the UN Secretary General. They seek to facilitate the evolution of the UN from an international cooperative body to an international governing body. These powers would be triggered by any one of a number of so-called global emergencies, whether it was a so-called climate emergency, a health emergency, a cyber emergency, or a gun violence emergency, whatever that's supposed to be, a financial emergency, or whatever they deem appropriate. And the Biden-Harris administration is in full agreement with the UN and the WHO on efforts to place us under their authority and require such things as their international health regulations, including the surveillance of U.S. citizens, the censoring of dissenting views, and much more. The American people didn't vote for this, and they don't support this, and it's up to the people's representatives, that's us gathered here today, to have a responsibility to expose this and to reject this. The U.S. should defund the WHO again. We should withdraw from the WHO. Any agreements with the WHO or the UN should require Senate approval or disapproval. And a bipartisan House majority voted to require Senate approval just last week with Tom Tiffany's bill on the House floor. So I'm proud to be joined here by House colleagues and others who are appropriately concerned and educated, informed, and leading on this issue. Again, this is the most important issue that's getting the least amount of attention relative to its importance and its impact on our country and on the American people. And with that, I yield to the gentleman from South Carolina, Ralph Norman.
Thank you, Congressman Good. I want to thank Frank Gaffney, Tony Perkins, all my colleagues for taking a lead role in this. As Congressman Good said, this is probably, other than our financial crisis this country's in, the most important issue to call attention to. The Summit of the Future will happen on September 22nd, 23rd. And folks, what that will do is cede America's authority, America's sovereignty to basically China. China is defined as a developing country. It is the number 2 economy behind America. It's not developing. It will cede our decision-making ability to China. That's what you need to know. Let me read out what the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, his policy brief 2, issued on March of 2023. I propose that the General Assembly provide the Secretary General and the United Nations system with a standing authority to convene and operationalize automatically an emergency platform in the event of a future complex global shock of sufficient scale. Guess who determines that? The World Health Organization. It reveals in their definition a possible global shock, including large-scale climate or environmental events, determined by who? The Secretary General. Future pandemics. We all endured what the problem we had with the latest virus. High-impact events, involving a biological agent, determined by who? The World Health Organization. Disruption of global flows of goods, determined by who? Not America, but the WHO under the Secretary General. Not only that, it requires a 5% payment by the United States every year of our total medical dollars spent, which are in the trillions. Bottom line, we cannot let this go. This is a top-line issue that America must be made aware of. It's got to go through the Senate, where it requires 60 votes. And we're going to fight to make sure all Americans know what's happening and stop us dead in its tracks. The WHO needs to be defunded, needs to be we need to do away with it, and America get out of it.
All right, so that was Congressman Ralph Norman from South Carolina, and he made some key points there. He was saying that the World Health Organization and the United Nations could declare a, quote, climate emergency. They also could declare a, quote, health emergency, a global health emergency, like we've seen recently. And they also could declare a supply chain emergency as well, too, right? And it would give them governing powers if any one of these things happened and they declared an emergency for it. All right, this is big because these things could go together as well too. All right, if there is a health emergency, they could also take control of the supply chain. And then the World Health Organization, this is all part of the treaty. I've made a few videos on this already, but it is now being approved by the UN, and then it has to be approved by the Senate as well too for us to adopt it. All right, so there's one more barrier left in the Senate, but it could potentially be adopted. All right, so, and even if it's not adopted by the Senate, the president has the discretion to voluntarily follow this treaty anyways. All right, but if it is passed by the Senate, then they have to follow it as a binding treaty with this global governance body and with all these other countries signed on too. All right, so this is big. And during a health crisis, a global health emergency, it would also give them power over the supply chain and things like medicines and medications. The World Health Organization would be able to have power over where these things are distributed to. All right, we're already seeing this right now with this mpox in Africa. Okay, the World Health Organization is asking all these countries like the US, France, there's been a couple different countries that have been sending resources and medications to Africa, and the UN World Health Organization could mandate things like that, and they could also mandate and control where certain life-saving medications go during these emergencies. So, and it would be based on things like equity. Okay, so they could decide that there's enough, you got enough in the US, you got enough of this life-saving medication, we are now redistributing it to other countries that need it more right now or are more equitable. Okay, that's all in the treaty. I've read through this thing multiple times, and they have signed this pact for the future at the UN. Right, so this is big. Let me know what you guys think down below. Please just hit it up for me down there to help get these warnings out. I appreciate that. This is something that they're working on in the background, right? We could see this activated, and they could be trying to pass this too before November for multiple reasons. Maybe they want to activate it before November, before the end of the year, or maybe they just want to get it to pass before the end of the year and solidify it. So no matter who is president, it doesn't matter. Okay, you're now binded to this global health treaty, and you have to follow these rules and regulations, or you're going to be sued and have problems with these other countries and the UN, the World Health Organization, all these things. All right, so that could be what is going on here, and it is taking away U.S. sovereignty and U.S. decision making and giving that to the World Health Organization and the UN, which is just a conglomerate of countries, and a lot of the countries are not allies. They're adversarial to the U.S., okay?
Tell me what y'all think about that. The defunding of the WHO and all these things that are under it that has to go through the Senate. Tell me what y'all think about that in the comments.